some of the online etiquette. For example, if it's an online setting, we are always comfortable with the camera off, right? The video off, kind of make use of, and it's something which on a personal level you have to do it. Nobody's going to come and tell you to do it. Yeah, we don't do it intentionally. Listening is something we do it intentionally, and there's a purpose behind it. So I mean, I'm not saying that you need to like continuously stare at the audience because that's kind of very creepy to do, but kind of like maintain your eye contact so that
Been there, done that. Do you think the transition from online to offline will affect the interpersonal skills of students?
First of all, I'd just like to thank you people for inviting me for this really fruitful session. To come back to your question, that's a very good question. And I think it will be a little difficult because we kind of switched really like back and forth, like from a conventional classroom or a conventional workplace to a virtual one. So I think it will be a little difficult, but I think we'll get through it. A lot of times, I think we also need to understand that the people who we are dealing with, or we are working with, or studying with, we also need to give them some kind of space, right? So I think that will be a little bit of a problem, but I think through trial and error, we can kind of overcome that. So yeah, it will be difficult, but it's not impossible. That's what I would like to say.
Right, right. What other challenges do you think people might face when they go back offline? Or what kind of challenges do you think have been eradicated after the past 2 years?
I think this is really funny thing which I would like to mention. You can't mute people when you are like actually dealing with them in person. That's what we would do if we don't want to speak. We just mute ourselves, right? And
Yeah.
we just be like, we don't want to kind of cater to this particular discussion. So a lot of people will have difficulty in opening up, in stating their purpose in a meeting or maybe their purpose in an organization. So I think that will be something which people are going to face, and it's going to be difficult. There are going to be like some kind of conflict, but I think that the speaker and the receiver of the message has to understand that what this is. It's something new for everyone, and I think a lot of people have joined particular organizations like as a fresher online. So for them, it's going to be a challenge. So I think there are certain companies which arrange a lot of these engagement workshops, be it online or offline. So I think that will be something which they can kind of make use of. And, it's something which on a personal level, you have to do it. Nobody's going to come and tell you to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's good that you mentioned a professional environment because I feel like there is a gap between what is being taught in colleges or in schools, and when you transition from a school or a college to working, there's a there are a lot of challenges in terms of the soft skills that are required and the kind of communication that happens. So, do you think there is such a gap, or and how do you think people overcome it?
Yeah, there is a huge gap, definitely. I'm talking about schools specifically because in schools we are just said that just study for the marks or just do this whatever is there in the curriculum. And I'm not really sure, but I think most of the schools are changing that slowly. They are kind of involving public speaking lectures. They're also involving communication skills lectures, which is a good practice. And talking about from colleges to a professional setting, I think when you are in college also, you just think that communication skills is this one paper which I don't really need to attend lectures. And I feel this, like I've been teaching communication skills for the past 3 years. And as a visiting lecturer and as a full-time lecturer, I've seen people saying that, no, this is not important. And the major focus is on the other, like, the main subject. Like, for example, if I were to teach, if I was teaching in an engineering college, I have done in the past, and I would always, have this conversation with students that this is nothing, this is just a basic paper. So I think there should be a major emphasis on this particular subject, communication skills, because in the real world, if you do not know how to communicate, you can't go and do your work. If you don't know basic etiquettes, like, how do you communicate with someone or basic English words, so it will be really difficult for you. So I think schools and colleges really need to push students, and they need to push students in attending all these sessions like public speaking, or elocution or whatever. Like there are so many things which I think everything is dependent on the people who teach, like
Right.
specifically the teachers and the parents.
Right. So you mentioned subjects like communication skills being taught in colleges. Even we had one subject like that in this semester itself. But what I felt as a student was the the subject. If it's communication skills, you can't teach it theoretically like a
No.
theory subject, right? But a lot of our curriculum was based on theory. What So I feel like the kind of curriculum that is set out in a lot of colleges, I won't be talking about all colleges or all curriculums, but in a lot of environments, that is what plays a very crucial role in whether the students are interested in actually paying attention to the subject. So think do you have any opinion on what kind of measures can be taken to make the subject
Yeah,
more interesting?
I think I got what you're trying to say, because when even I was teaching this particular paper, like business communication ethics and communication skills, I felt the curriculum is quite outdated, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I think if I'm aware of this, that when you have theory, you also have practical sessions. So I think a lot of things are learned through practical sessions. When you apply it, it's the same with your main subjects. Like if you're in an engineering college, they teach you theory. That does not mean that you're just happy with theory. You want to apply it somewhere, right? In real life applications. So I think with theory, you also need to have practical sessions. And a lot of times, the teachers, the professors, they also need to do their own homework as to what kind of knowledge they're imparting on the students. Because a lot of times, the teachers, they just give you theory and they're just done with it. What I would suggest, and what I have been doing this in the past, like because we also had shifted to an online platform, and when I was teaching students, I would also make them listen to particular podcasts and then ask them their opinion on this, like maybe a particular social issue, like so something to do with maybe feminism, or something to do with kind of the Farmers Act, which was repealed, right? So I just told them that listen to this podcast and listen to what this person is saying, and now you tell me what do you think about it. So that is how you make your students speak.
Yeah, true, definitely. So coming to my next question, interpersonal communication is not just restricted to verbal communication, right? Uh, so what are the kinds of interpersonal communication are there?
So there's this really main interpersonal skill which we all need to implement is listening. So we are always hearing things. We say that we heard about this. So
Yeah,
hearing is something which we don't do it intentionally.
right.
Listening is something we do it intentionally, and there's a purpose behind it. So we just hear things. We don't listen, because once you listen, then you kind of your brain starts thinking that, okay, what do I answer next? Because a lot of times before even listening to the question, we just hear the first word and we are like, okay, fine, I know the answer. But then the rest of the question has some different meaning. So we need to listen. The second thing, the second interpersonal skills, which is not inclined to verbal communication, is your written communication. Because a lot of times that is also part of your interpersonal communication. Even as a student or an employee in an organization, right? Uh, a lot of times there are certain kind of lingos which we do not know. Like even sometimes even I did not know what was PFA. Like when I started studying, I was like, what is PFA? Or what is EOD? Like I was so shocked, because I kind of transitioned from academic setting to an industry setting. And a lot of my managers said that, I want this document EOD, and I had to go and Google it, like what is this? So that I don't look stupid when I'm replying. So a lot of these communication cues and all these words, these short forms, they are very much available online. But the
Mhm.
only thing is, as an individual, we have to go and we have to learn it by ourselves. And I think there are a lot of courses which also help you understand these things and all. It's just that you have to do everything on your own.
While we're on the topic of non-verbal communication, your body language or your hand movements, your hand gestures, uh, it's very challenging to pick up on these non-verbal cues while you're in an online setting, because again, like you mentioned, most people have their cameras off. They're not even they're it's passive listening. So how do you think can we overcome that, apart from the ones that you mentioned, that people should be encouraged to keep their camera on, or they should be forced to participate. But are there any other ways where how we can overcome that?
I think there's one thing like when you're a student, right? I mean, I would use this in my sessions when I would conduct. Like I would just kind of make them play kind of an icebreaker game. So when you play an icebreaker game before the session, it kind of hypes the entire class. They'll be like, okay, fine, this teacher is going to bring something next, and then connect that to your lesson. So I think most of the teachers do this in schools and in colleges, because I would practice this because I used to attend some sessions wherein they also had the same thing. They would encourage us to keep our camera on. And I would actually ask my students, like, can you show me an item in your living room which is a particular color, and then show it to me on the screen. So that is how they would actually switch on their cameras, and that was a trick which I used to use, and it worked. It worked majorly because I think yelling and shouting is not going to work. Like if your teacher is going to yell at you like, "Arey camera on karo," or "Jo bhi hai," they'll not listen. Like if I was a student, I wouldn't listen. I'll be like, "No, I will not." Like I'll directly say. But if I would say that, okay, fine, I'm playing this game and I need your camera on. I need to see the expressions. I wanted to show like if an angry expression, how do I express it? So I think there's a little bit of all these tips and tricks and these hacks you have to use. Otherwise, your cameras are going to be off.
That's true. Been there, done that. So,
Yeah.
so over the years, have you observed any patterns in what makes a good communicator?
Yes. A lot of times I had students when I used to teach in this one particular engineering college, and I had students who would say that we don't know to speak. And I was like, no, you do. The thing is, you don't know what words are to be used. So I think that vocabulary aspect is missing,
Hmm.
because most of us think that, we just have to mug up things and come to college and just, kind of remove it out of our head into a paper. One thing which I used to use, I have this very non-conventional way of telling students that, you need to watch movies. And they just look at me and they're like, what? I said, yeah, because if you don't watch movies with subtitles, this is what I would recommend. Movies with subtitles,
Yeah,
English movies. I do not watch Bollywood because that is, you already know the language, right? So
right.
watch movies which are like, Hollywood movies,
Hmm.
and watch it with subtitles. Watch shows, a lot of shows which also teach you about, if you are kind of shifting from your, college setting to a professional setting, there are a lot of shows. There are some certain shows which basically state that this is not what you should do in the workplace.
Right.
So kind of, I think if you're aware of The Office, like this one show which everyone enjoys, and I would always use one clip from that Office show, wherein to kind of demonstrate what exactly you should not do in a meeting. Because this is something which is very very important. Like you can't just come and barge into a meeting, and there's particular etiquette like when do you have to join or when do you have to speak and all that. So watch shows, watch movies. Also, there are particular mediums like podcasts. Like a lot of these podcasts, they actually state, like certain questions when they're asked to you in an interview, how do you respond to that? So there are so many things which are there in the open. And I think I would always tell the students that don't tell me that, you can't find it, because Google is there, right? You
Yeah.
can just Google stuff and you get things. You don't have to go to a library and, read a book and all that. Because I think a lot of times when I would suggest reading books to students, they'd be like, ma'am, it's 300 pages, it's 200 pages. हमारा engineering का भी है, psychology का भी है. I was like, okay, fine, then you listen to something, listen to a podcast, or listen to an audiobook. So yeah, this is what I had to say about this.
So it's funny that you mentioned podcasts. Are there any particular ones that you swear by, or that you follow, or that you would recommend people watching, or for
Yes,
people to listen to? Are there any?
definitely. I am a big fan of podcasts. Like before I even started teaching or before I even started joining college, I used to listen to podcasts. And there's this one like podcast for the Indian audience. It's by Cyrus Brocha. It's called Cyrus Says. And this one podcast is basically, it's very Indianized in the sense, a lot of discussions are about the political scenario, about social issues, about sports, about films. There are also a little bit about Hollywood also and what is happening around the world. But he kind of, delves into everything in a very funny way and in a very Indian accent. So it's very easier for us to pick on that, because I wouldn't suggest something which is, maybe a Hollywood person kind of, hosting this podcast because that is something which is very difficult for us to understand because the accent is very different. And
Hmm.
an Indian accent, basically, we stress on the words. An
Yes.
American accent or a British accent or an English accent, they just kind of just go running away, like just want the entire sentence to end. So Cyrus says this is one podcast which I would suggest you can go and look it up. It's on Spotify on any of the platforms. You also have something called as stuff you should know. It's basically random stuff which is there around the world which we would not go and Google. And I think this is very important because when you're going to start a conversation with a stranger, like you just can't say that, hi, come on, tell me about your family. That's kind of very like you just want to barge into someone's privacy, right? Private life. So you can use like certain issues from these podcasts or topics or like current scenarios, and then you can start a conversation because that is how you can keep the conversation engaging.
Actually, you also mentioned The Office in your previous answer. I'm currently watching it, and I mean, there are a lot of instances where you're like, what is he doing? That's not professional at all. So, there are a lot of skills that go into getting a job apart from the hard skills. So, in case of communication skills, how essential are they while getting a job, and what kind of other skills do you require?
So as I mentioned that you need to listen. This is one skill, listening, right? This is one thing which you always have to keep in mind that I need to listen to people. Another thing is I need to comprehend as to what exactly is this question, like why is it coming to me, like what is the purpose of it. The next is, what kind of an answer am I going to give? Is it going to be something which is just picked up from the internet, or is it something from my own brain, from my own thinking? And a lot of times we also need to empathize with the person. Like if I say this answer, what will the other person think? Like if I were to kind of just say that students are like this and students are like that and students are like that, I don't think Tajini you would like it. You would be like, how dare you? How dare you say that to me when I am a student? You would be personally attacked by it. But you would not show it because you don't want to kind of create that kind of a conflict situation. So I think empathy is something which is very, very important when you're at the workplace or even at school. Because I think we are not taught about these things when we are kids. We are not taught to empathize. We are not taught to say that to understand other people's situation. We just kind of say that we don't care. We are very like taught to be very individualistic. That is what I would say. We don't believe in groupism. We don't believe in caring about other people's feelings and actions and thoughts and all that. So yeah, these are some of the things even at the workplace because if you do not keep these things in mind, there is always going to be conflict, and then you'll have to go through this entire process of conflict resolution, which is it's another ball game. It's something which takes a lot of time to tell this person that see, this is not what that other person meant. It's just that maybe she's in another situation. कुछ हो रहा होगा घर पे या जो भी है. So yeah, that's something which I would like to mention that empathy, listening, and comprehending.
So this is my final question now. You said there are a lot of shows that help you with the cultural and language differences, and a lot of books also, which not a lot of people are into reading. But are there any recommendations for books or shows that you would like to suggest?
So shows I would like to say is The Office. Like you do have a very diverse setting over there. Like you do have like one character who's Indian, and they actually even pay emphasis to the Diwali episode. Like there's a Diwali episode, and yeah, some of it is also very very prejudiced. If something is like some of the things you will kind of take offense, but it's a TV show, right? And then you have Friends. Because I always use Friends as an example to understand English. Because different accents, and different people, and how in New York how people live.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of shows. There's also one show called as the Mindy Project. It is circled around an Indian. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have Mindy Kaling, yeah. So she is basically talking about her Indian roots.
Mhm.
And yeah, there are several shows. Like if I were to sit and list down everything, I think it wouldn't be possible in this meeting. But still, I mean, The Office, the Mindy Project. You also have shows like I can't remember most of the shows right now. It's like you just put me on the spot. But yeah, The Office. I would say the US version specifically. You also have Indian shows. Like you also have the Indian US, Indian Office version of the US. Like of The Office, whatever. So I think that is something which is really it's not advisable to watch it because you will get a headache as
Yeah.
to what are they doing. But still, you can watch that.
Yeah.
So also, yeah, I just remembered there is this one show called Mind Your Language. It's a very old show. It's like 1980s, and it basically you have people from different nationalities, and it makes you understand that there is a gap, there is a barrier in communication because all of us understand things in a very different way. Like there are people from Spain, people from Japan. So this is readily available on YouTube. So you don't have any streaming platform. So Mind Your Language is something which I would recommend. It's really funny. And yeah, again, it is super racist at some point of time, but I think we have kind of make do with all these things, I mean, we that's what has happened in the past.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay. Thank you so much for those great recommendations. I'll check them out as soon as possible.
yes.
And I would also like to thank you for your time and for giving us such a great session. I hope that you had as much fun as I did. I am pretty sure all of us did. I would also like to thank everyone who has joined for today. Yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the invite. I mean, I was very happy that I could give in my insights about this particular topic, and I hope it was fruitful
It was
and
great.
yeah, and engaging. Definitely. Thank you so much.